Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar in our new series, Powering a Modern Workplace with Sparkrock 365. So today we will be discussing why a cloud foundation matters. My name is Jane Soper. I'm the marketing coordinator here at Sparkrock, and I will be your moderator for today's event. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome our speaker for today's webinar, James Faw. James is the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder here at Sparkrock and has been involved in over 150 implementations since he started at Sparkrock in 2003, in addition to having over 20 years of experience in the technology sector. James has worked in both the for-profit and nonprofit spaces, giving him a very well-rounded understanding of what our clients need in a technology solution. So needless to say, you're all in very good hands. So with that, James, please take it away.
All right, thanks so much, Jane, and welcome everybody. So today we're looking at powering a modern workplace with Sparkrock 365. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that means to you and some of the advantages of a cloud solution. And then we'll spend time really taking a look at what the user experience means for you. So looking at what the changes are in the actual platform itself and what being part of this true cloud platform can really mean to your organization from features and functions and how you work with the system. So we'll spend most of the time in the demo, and then we'll have an opportunity to wrap up with a Q&A. So as Jane mentioned, please feel free to ask the questions anytime you want. Just feel free to type into the question panel, and we'll answer those at the end of the session. So powering a modern workplace with Sparkrock 365. So, Sparkrock 365, this solution is the only integrated ERP solution, fully integrated ERP solution that's purpose-built for our customer base, social impact organizations, and native to the cloud. So that is something that's really important. And part of our solution being built on this Microsoft platform means that we can offer this rich functionality in a truly native to the cloud environment. So now we're going to walk you through that journey. And so this is the session that we have today, June 25th. So why the cloud foundation matters. And then we're going to take a look at and have a couple of sessions in conjunction with some folks on our implementation or delivery teams. So Stephanie Gunn and myself are going to talk to you about why your finance team will thank you for migrating. So really, what are the new features in Sparkrock 365 that are sort of finance and procurement related? And then the impact of migrating on and managing your workforce and payroll. So Jen Mears and myself will be speaking to you again about the new features in Sparkrock 365 in those areas. And then we're going to wrap up the series with Monica and Angela from the customer success team, and they'll really speak to you about what migration really looks like, the process, the timelines, sort of what you can expect from that, and sort of how long it will take you. So that's we think that will provide you with good insight around the entire life cycle, sort of why, what, and then how you would go about doing it. So just talking about some of the advantages of a cloud solution, if we think of a true cloud solution, then there's many advantages that are simply based on the platform. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the Microsoft platform, availability, remote access, security, and compliance, and some of the things that perhaps sounded like nice to haves before our current pandemic, but really, it's become very clear that they're need to have in terms of organizational continuity and resilience planning. So we'll spend some time talking about those, and then improved integration with other Microsoft ecosystem applications. So we're going to talk a bit about that. The shift of the IT responsibilities and associated costs from your in-house resources to us, to Sparkrock and Microsoft, and the true cost advantage of SaaS software. So again, we're going to touch on those 4 points just fairly quickly. So first of all, one of the huge advantages is really a trusted cloud solution. So if any of you have been following the news around security and data breaches or attacks, it's been apparent that there's some fairly consistent and methodical attacks being made at, for example, municipal governments, smaller, medium, and small-sized municipalities, and hospitals specifically. Again, small and medium-sized hospitals, where there's been ransomware attacks in those organizations. And so, and they've been successful in using ransomware attacks and encrypting data, and really important data in those organizations. And often the access in is through an antiquated technology, perhaps an antiquated ERP that is that has requires older non-patched Microsoft operating systems or something like that, and those are where they're getting the vulnerabilities. And so a true cloud solution is always make sure that you're on the latest in terms of the security patches. On the Azure platform, Microsoft security experts, thousands of them, are monitoring any kind of breaches or breaks anywhere across the massive Azure platform, and anything that they've uncovered from one area, they quickly apply as updates that go out to the entire platform. So it's truly a much more secure environment, especially with the Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit, actively working on deterring ransomware and malware attacks. So much more secure than what each of your individual or customers' organizations would be able to afford in terms of security experts or access to security experts, or even frankly what Sparkrock would be able to afford. Simply by being on this platform, we solve many of those issues. The other is about privacy, so giving customers ownership of their data and control over who has access and when with permissions. So that's a key part. Compliance with global and regional standards. And so we have customers across North America, for our customers in the US, all deployments are made in data centers in the US soil, with data redundancy to other data centers in the US, and the same for Canadian customers as well. So we're making sure that your data is not in transit across borders, so it's compliant with a global and regional standards. And resiliency, so keeping your applications up and running and your data available. So these are monitoring tools that Sparkrock and Microsoft have in place that are ensuring that the platform is running and up and meets or exceeds the SLAs offered by the application. So again, it's a truly trusted cloud solution is significantly more secure and safer than traditional on-premise technology or hosted technology. So one of the other benefits of leveraging the Microsoft platform, and the platform that we're leveraging for Sparkrock 365, is a solution called Dynamics 365 Business Central. And that platform is a truly modern platform. It's there's multiple ERP applications from Microsoft whose migration path to the cloud is this same platform. So clearly Microsoft is signaling that this is the platform of the future. And it has been built in a modern, connected method, which is purpose-built for the cloud. So that's the Dynamics 365. And today, hopefully, you'll see some of the connectors into Office 365. We'll be able to demonstrate that to you. That's very deep across multiple areas of Office 365. Being on the Power Apps, common data service down here also allows this platform to have many opportunities to integrate into other solutions that are within the Microsoft ecosystem. So for example, LinkedIn is offering some new solutions and new tools that this solution is well positioned to integrate with. And so those are things that Sparkrock is exploring. Microsoft also has a wealth of solutions that are part of the low code, no code sort of extensibility movement in terms of app development. And so Power Apps is the solution where you can create actually, forms for inputting data, things like that, mini apps that can do different things, very sophisticated things. Power Automate is a workflow engine that can, take and monitor events. Maybe a status gets updated in a grant, and then it can trigger actions in something else. So some really amazing scenarios that can be done there as well. And then Power BI, which is a truly brilliant tool, data visualization tool that Microsoft acquired quite some time ago now. But Microsoft does a great job in terms of democratizing access, taking something that was sort of very expensive, only available to large organizations, and really making it available, reducing the price and making it available and accessible to many organizations. So we'll talk a little bit more about Power BI. And then in that same framework, of course, it's on the Azure platform, which we talked about. There's those tools for dev extensibility. So many of those are tools that we are using within Sparkrock to extend the solution. And there's also the Common Data Service, which allows you to connect pieces of information inside our application to others on the Microsoft platform with different connectors and gateways. So again, having a truly Microsoft-based application that is connected into this infrastructure opens up a lot of options for our customers, and also additional scenarios that we'll be evaluating and setting up samples for and speaking to our customers about. So, the new realities of living in the cloud also are important to understand. A true cloud solution is really a solution that has continuous product updates. So in the consumer world, with our smartphones, we're used to getting updates on a regular basis, sometimes even daily. There are updates to apps where things are being refreshed and patched and bugs are being fixed. It's no longer the large upgrade sort of hurdle that happens, and it only happens once every few years. It's a much more frequent cadence where updates are rolled out in a more, again, frequent and less sort of overwhelming way, or an easy to absorb way. So that also is part of the Sparkrock 365 SaaS deployment, where those updates are coming on a much more up to 4 times a year. And they're in such a way that they're less invasive, or less, it's not an upgrade project like it has been in the past. The other theme is really this reduced dependence on IT. So and we'll dive into a little bit further, but a lot of the tasks that were important for internal IT, in an on-premise or a hosted scenario, still there's more dependence on internal IT, on applying objects or managing backups, or making sure installing a client, configuring something else, an integration or something like that. All of those are tasks that move away from dependence on your internal IT and become handled by the service itself. So, and then the third theme is really access anywhere. So access your ERP anywhere. And again, in this current pandemic, we can see how some of those concepts that may have felt like nice to haves are now need to haves in terms of continuity. So just to dive in a little bit in terms of the true comparison of on-premise versus cloud software. So again, and we're sort of generally lumping in hosted and on-premise into the single bucket. So all of the items, the bullet points that you see here are typically applicable to on-premise. Many of them are also applicable to sort of a hosted kind of a framework as well. So we want to make sure we distinguish between a hosted versus a true cloud. So Sparkrock 365 is the true cloud. So what you see on the right. And if we think on the left-hand side, there are licensing concerns that you need to consider. So customization and implementation, any hardware, any IT personnel, training, all of those types of licensing that needs to be, handled there. And then ongoing costs, anything from applying patches. Many of you have probably some memories of, importing object files and updating those and hoping that you're not overwriting something that you shouldn't, things like that, or managing an upgrade. So, every couple of years doing an upgrade project, doing the QA on that and sort of managing that in-house, managing downtime or performance tuning if there's slower performance, and investing in hardware if you need to increase capacity from a hardware side. Rewriting customizations or integrations if those are upgrading and upgrading dependent applications, so other sort of adjacent applications that are dependent on it, and the ongoing burden on IT, maintaining, upgrading hardware, network, security, database, all of those things are costs that are part of the true calculation for what an on-premise software. And again, many of those also apply to a hosted type of a model. And then comparing and contrasting that with a true cloud, where really there's implementation and configuration, so getting it set up and getting your team trained on using it, and there's a subscription fee for access, but all of those other ongoing costs are built into that subscription fee, and those are not things that you have to worry about. Those are all handled by the service. So hopefully this helps you understand sort of the significant nature of a shift from on-premise to true cloud, simply from a deployment perspective. So let's start looking at pivot to not only the platform, but really what some of these changes mean to you from a user experience perspective. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How can I access those? So, what user experience means for you is really new and better ways of doing the same things. So the same things that you could do, showing them, and how I'll show you those and how they've been improved. Remote and mobile access, so allowing users to access from anywhere. And I will mention that our solution by default, our default restrictions are North America wide. So in a SaaS deployment, anywhere in North America, the application would become available. Of course, we'll work with your IT team and we can lock that down further or open it up further. We do have some customers that have a global presence. So in some cases, that's opened up further, or it could be locked down further as well, including to your internal locations, or maybe to a particular region or something like that. So we'll work along with your IT to set those parameters according to their comfort levels. And in terms of the access, it also is mobile or tablet. And of course, more intuitive and flexible licensing to align with different types of users accessing the system. So I'll touch on those as well. So this is the latest tiles slide. Many of you sort of may remember that. And again, if you're still coming from Sparkrock 2016, a lot of the licensing was more granular in nature. There was a lot more pieces that you could turn on and turn off. And with Sparkrock 365, there's essentially the number of users that you need and the different types of users, but there's only 4 different functional SKUs that you select. So, finance and procurement, HR management, scheduling and time entry, and payroll administration. So it's really very simple. And in many cases, customers that are migrating from 2016 to 365 are getting net new. In almost all cases, they're getting more capability than they had, so more areas than they had in the past. Many benefits there. And of course, also the benefits of the enhancements that we made in all of those areas. So many, literally hundreds of enhancements in every area where our team has worked on pulling feedback that you've submitted through the portal, and as we're going through the upgrade process to the new platform, layering in all of those suggestions and requests. So I want to pivot a little bit to what the changes are from a client perspective. So we've talked about the work anywhere, anytime, on any device. And that really, what that means to you is that the application is available in the desktop client. So what most users access on a daily basis is the desktop client, which is a truly fully web-based client. So it is web-based. It's not. It's browser-based. There isn't something that the user has to sort of install, that IT has to install. And then there are apps that you can download from the App Store and connect into for tablet and mobile. And those are available for all the major platforms. So either Microsoft tablet devices, iOS tablet devices or Android tablet devices and mobile devices for all three of those as well. So it's simply using the apps, and they connect right into the system. And there's full functionality in any one of those. So you can actually you can do your journal entries on your phone, or you can calculate payroll on your phone. So just wanted to mention that. And so I'm going to take a quick moment and actually pivot into the application. So I'm going into the application. I'm just going to re-log in, but again, showing you I happen to be using the Edge browser here, but this is available in any one of the browsers that you want. And so this is the desktop client. So we'll be spending a little bit more time in it later today, but I want to focus on showing you sort of what the mobile user experience looks like. So the layout is across the top with the menus across the top instead of the sort of bars that you saw in 2016 around the side. You can navigate through each one of these. You can, select on specific links here, and there's a very high degree of personalization in terms of what you see. So this is the accounting manager role center that you see here. But I wanted to primarily show you how this is functioning in a browser, but I'm just going to use a technique here for emulating what it looks like in other devices. So this is what the same thing looks like. The accounting manager role center looks like in a tablet device. So, I can scroll through, I can see the same things that I have here. I can go in and look at my chart of accounts, perhaps, or all my accounts, or just my cash account balances. I can see what those are on the budget pre-commitment, all of those things I can see right from here. If I'm looking at it sort of in a tablet experience, or the same thing from mobile. So if I'm looking at it a phone, this is what it looks like in a mobile phone. So again, a little bit different sort of layout and navigation, but obviously you have less room to move here, where you're accessing the sort of account here, and then you can drill into it further to see additional details. So kind of a slimmed down look and feel to it, but definitely the same, the full capability of functionality there. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is that a licensing allows you to connect multiple times. So it's not a single license. You're allowed to have as many connections as you want with a single user. So for example, you may be working on your desktop doing some work in finance, let's say, working with the chart of accounts, but you're also an approver for a particular department, and so you may just pick up your mobile device to look at the number of approvals that you have there, requests to approve, and you can review and look at these. So these happens to be absence requests, but they could be requisitions or time entry, whatever it is, and you can open up those requests and take a look at them and choose to approve or deny those transactions directly from here. So you can see how you can actually use both form factors, both devices, both ways of working with the system at the same time. So hopefully you're getting a sense of the insight into the application, and again, how you can access the mobile, tablet, and desktop apps. So one of the things that goes along with that is really the fact that we've modified the user types that are available in Sparkrock 365. So now you can see there is a full user. So I've got some examples of some of the roles or role centers or types of users that would use a full user. So again, anybody in your finance department or purchasing department, accounts payable, accounts receivable, HR, payroll, training and scheduling, admin, all of those types of sort of personas or roles in your organization are going to need a full user account. Of course, you can restrict it based on permissions. So you can have those restrictions, but they'll be using with a full user in order to access those different areas. Then we do have a new type of user, the manager user, and that's a user who does any kind of approval in the system. So if they're approving anything, if from an HR perspective, if they are a manager and so they have access to manager self-service, they'll need this access. And also tied to that, if they enter a requisition or do any of the procurement activities, then those users need to be manager users as well. So it's not strictly managers, also users who are entering requisitions or payment requests. So, typically those are senior managers or managers within the organization. A budget manager could also be a department, a school principal or a school secretary as well, or a department user, depending on the roles you have in your organization. They would have those types of users. And those types of users actually have view only, so they're accessing the solution through the same desktop, the same mobile app, and tablet app options, and they may have view only to anywhere in the application. So there's some new capabilities there that provide some interesting scenarios for our customers and users. And then the last type of user is the team user. So these would be all employees. So in finance, it's tied to expense claims. The only additional thing that a team user can do is expense claims through My Sparkrock, or the sort of the functionality that in 2016 was called Employee Center. So those users can log in and enter expenses in finance, or they can look at employee self-service, or view their schedules, or enter timesheets in some of the other areas. So all employees would have a team user license for that, or an employee user license. So hopefully that provides you with some insight into those different license types, and just keep that in mind, since in 2016 there were only the 2 types of licenses. So it's just that new middle type here that provides us with some more opportunities. So let's go into the application and take a little bit more of a look at some of the additional features in the solution. So we've already started off by looking at the solution from a perspective of the mobile app. But this is a truly Microsoft solution. So it's embedded within Office 365. So one of the things that you'll notice is the Office 365 waffle here, these 9 dots that you have, that I have here. This is taking me into other Office 365 apps. And Sparkrock 365 is just another one of those apps that is available there. So as I mentioned before, your navigation is pretty straightforward, where I can access these menus across the top. And this also is consistent with Office 365 navigation. So our experience is that users are able to ramp up very quickly on the solution, because they're able to apply knowledge that they have of other Microsoft Office applications. If you're already using Office 365, that's an added benefit that they can apply to learning the application. So some of the other features involve the ability to look through the solution and make personalizations or customizations. So if I go to personalize, I can very easily change anything that's here. So if I want to remove this deposits or receivables or something like that, or I don't really need to approve sales orders, I can simply click on this and hide or move this particular item to another place, or remove it altogether. So there's also the ability to pin things favorites, and so this menu across the top here can be edited to allow me to pin favorite items here. So these are like my bookmarks of things that I access on a frequent basis. And also with Sparkrock 365, there's ability to explore a full menu. So this menu is subject to your permissions itself. So these are, I'm in an accounting manager role center, so these are all of the areas in the accounting manager role center that I can access. But if I use the Explore All, then it allows me to access completely other areas, including going into purchasing or some other area of the solution. But this also is subject to my security, my permissions. So those are some of the sort of very high level navigation and usability features for Sparkrock 365. So I wanted to touch on some of the other solutions in terms of what happens in Sparkrock 365. So one of the major benefits of Sparkrock 365 is the fact that it has a connection into other solutions within the Microsoft ecosystem. So when we come back on the next session after this, we'll spend more time looking at some of these charts and graphs and what they mean to finance users. But one of the things I want to zero in today is looking at how Sparkrock 365 has a bi-directional integration with other Microsoft platform solutions such as Power BI. So Power BI is a solution from Microsoft that is really brilliant in terms of data visualization that I mentioned. And so Sparkrock 365 has out-of-the-box connectors where I can push data from Sparkrock 365 into Power BI. And then, but it's the other side of the bi-directional is that I can also display those charts and reports inside the application. So in this case, this data here is a vendor analysis dashboard that our reporting specialist, Brenda, has created for me as a sample here. And I can actually open this up and I can expand the report. And this is a live window into Power BI into that data. So this is plotting all of my vendors on a map, first of all, so I can see where they are. So these are where all my vendors are here. And it's giving me some additional analysis. So total purchases by vendor. I have different vendor posting groups. I guess everybody's in one posting group here. I can look at the balance, or I can look at filter by city. So if I want to just take a look at all my, maybe Edmonton, and I can control select Hamilton and Etobicoke here vendors. I can see what those ones are here, and I can take a look at these totals. All of this other data is sort of updated based on that, or I can select all here. So it's very easy to interact with. Or if I want to look at all of my vendors that have purchase amounts where we spent a certain amount with them over a certain dollar value, I can just filter it like this, and and quickly get to that, get to where my top vendors are and sort of what the amount thresholds are. So again, some really neat things that we can do with this vendor analysis simply by sort of clicking on the data in Power BI, even though it's right within our solution. A few other ones are even this very interesting sort of vendor breakdown. We have a similar one for customers as well, and it's a new way of visualizing data where there's data flow. So there might be a total purchases here, and then I can go into that total purchases. Well, it's made up of how many different vendor posting groups here. So again, I only have one in this example, so I'm going to drill into that, and then I see all the countries where it exists, and then all of the cities where it exists, and I can actually zero in on a specific city and see a specific vendor, and then specific payments that were made. So it's really following the thread of the transaction, and this could be something that's helpful for maybe auditors taking a look or looking at sort of what's going on in terms of data in your system and following the thread of it. So I have the same analysis here in terms of purchases or in terms of balances. A few other ones, some more financial data here, again, where I can look at total amounts or maybe just look at my expenses. It's highlighting how many ones I have over budget or under budget of those accounts, and it's giving me my full budget to actual calculation here with the ability to filter on account totals here, fixed asset analysis, customer analysis, and then even some HR samples here where employees, where I can actually click on specific employees and take a look at additional information about those employees, or seeing all of my employee addresses plotted on a map, or union or seniority lists, or even employee attendance analysis, where I'm looking at I can do Monday, Friday analysis and see a heat map of where absences are here on Fridays or Mondays here, and where most of them are, and even the daily breakdown or the reasons here to see what those are. So some really amazing things that can be done with Power BI in terms of data visualization, and then having that content presented to the users directly in the system is something that we're really excited about being able to offer our customers that are moving to Sparkrock 365. So some of the other platform features that I wanted to mention, and I will focus sort of many of these apply equally to different areas of the system, but I want to focus on sort of finance examples here. Another very exciting one is this idea of a feature to edit in Excel. So this is a feature that is available for a SaaS deployment only. So I can explain what that means if there are questions about that. But it is where the solution provides you with an option to edit in Excel. So not only can I open in Excel, but I can edit in Excel. And for those of you who are concerned about auditability, I will clarify that you can't edit something that you couldn't edit in the application. So, I couldn't go to my posted GL entries and use it to edit this because it's not, I can't edit something that you couldn't edit in the application. But anything that I could edit directly in the application, like changing a vendor master record, or a customer record, or definitions for master records or data in the system, I can edit using this edit in Excel feature. So it just provides another tool for making mass changes. So in this scenario, I'd like to suggest, so let's say that there's some turnover in my purchasing department, and so I need to reassign Annette Hills. Perhaps she retired, and I'm going to reassign Annette Hills, all of Annette Hills vendors, to John Roberts. So I just changed the purchasing code. I can easily just drag that down here and make those changes, and then notice that I can click on publish, and it's going to go ahead. It's counted 19 changes here, and it's going to go ahead and publish those 19 changes back into the application. So it's that easy to do that, to make mass changes to data, that sort of stuff. And it also is subject to all the validation. So if I had picked, a JR code that didn't exist here, it would give me an error here, and I can actually look at the error, and it's the same error that you would see pop up on the screen if you were typing in the wrong value. And so it's easy to interpret that error, solve it right here in Excel, and then publish until you've cleared all the errors. So it is subject to validation. If you do have any workflows, for example, that are around new vendor testing, new vendor setup and approval of a new vendor. Notice it still says AH here, and I'm going to just refresh the screen. It'll trigger all of those workflows as well. So it doesn't circumvent any of the logic. It just allows me to leverage that. And you can see now that once I refresh that page, John Roberts has been updated here on all of those. And if I go and look at this particular record, even though I made the change in Excel, if I go to my number of changes, I can see here's the date and time. This is 2:38 Eastern time here, and I can see that I changed it from AH to JR. There's a few other system updated fields, the date and time, and a date field that got automatically updated based on that change. So there are 3 changes that happened as a result of that update from Excel. And you can see I demoed the same thing because I keep changing it back and forward here. But it doesn't subvert the change log or any of the other business logic in the system. So that's one that's really exciting. There's even scenarios with journal entries where you're able to start a journal entry and then use the edit in Excel, continue the journal entry in Excel itself, and then publish the entry back into the system. And so that saves you from having to use the import from Excel feature, give it a file name, and import it. So some really exciting scenarios there. So another feature that I wanted to show you was also integration to some of the other Microsoft Office solutions. So this happens to be an Outlook, and it's tied to my my particular account here. This is it's tied to a demo account. So I do have a JFaw demo account for my demo system, but I've emailed myself from my Sparkrock account here. I've also, inside my demonstration company, I have linked jfaw at sparkrock.com with a vendor, a contact that's associated with a vendor. And so if you turn on this insights, I've got an insights section on here. So I'm going to click off this email address so you can see here, and then click back on again. If I turn on this insights, it actually searches through and it finds that jfawsparkrock.com is associated with a contact that's associated with a vendor, First Up Consultants. And then it presents to me inside my Outlook the vendor statistics here. So I can see what the current balance is for the vendor. I can see the outstanding orders, essentially what would show up on the fact box on the vendor statistics. I can scroll down here. It's showing the aged accounts payable chart that is here, and it's interactable. So if I want to kind of look at it over multiple years, I can do that. I guess I don't have a lot of transactions here. And I can see all of the transactions, invoice, posted receipts, invoices, all of those things. I can add a new link or a new note from here, right from my inbox. I can look up, this is interactable. So if I drill down on the balance, I can actually see the invoices that make up that balance right from here, or I can go back. And I can even, since this is a vendor, I can start a purchase invoice, a purchase credit memo, or a purchase order right from here. So if I got a quote back from the vendor, and they're giving me some more information, I can actually just use that to start entering a PO right from inside my email. Now, it's also connected in with some artificial intelligence, and it will look through the content of my email and find it uses artificial intelligence to see if it can match it up with an inventory item. So it suggested this inventory item here, this conference table here, and I can choose to accept that, or if I just want to enter it directly, I can reject that and go ahead and start entering the PO right from here. So I can also pop it out if I want to, open up a bigger window to work with and start entering it from here. But I wanted to point out how it's very easy and straightforward to see information and to really understand what's going on without having to sort of try to look up something in two different applications, all tabbing between them. The system is doing that for you. So today, these scenarios are supported for both customers and vendors. So it's limited to customers and vendors today, but both Sparkrock and Microsoft are looking at extending these scenarios out further. We'd love to see that for employees as well. So we'll be working on that if at all possible over the next coming updates. But again, even as is, some pretty exciting things. So I wanted to show you that as well in terms of the data in Excel. So hopefully that gives you some insight into some of the pieces of the solution and that deeper integration with the Microsoft platform. I did want to mention that we also have deeper integration with Microsoft Word as well. So many of there were a few documents. I think the purchase order and the sales invoice were ones that could be edited in Microsoft Word. So those continue to be, but we've added many more. The customer statement, and also the ability to edit content in the emails that are attached to the documents that go out via email, like the EFT remittance advice, or purchase orders that go out to vendors. You can now edit both the in Word, the content that goes in the email body, as well as the actual document that gets attached as your PO. So a lot more control using Microsoft Word around how you configure those documents, especially external facing documents. And as a reminder, the solution supports you having an unlimited number of different documents out there. So you can have 5 different POs that are used for different types of purchases with a different layout or a different logo or some different information on them, or perhaps different terms and conditions. And you can associate those PO formats with different vendors or sales invoice formats with different customers. So again, some really exciting things that provide our customers' organizations with some new and exciting features and ways of being more efficient in the application. So I'm just going to take a moment to wrap up some of the things that we talked about. And here's a quote from Maslow, and that is the same Maslow as the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So in any given moment, we have 2 options: to step forward into growth or step back into safety. So hopefully we're giving you some motivation to step forward into growth in terms of having a more secure and efficient application platform truly managed in the cloud for your organization. So where to go from here? Well, continue to explore Sparkrock 365 through the webinar series. So remember that we've got 3 more coming up. And get engaged with your customer care rep or account executives to discuss next steps. So yeah, feel free to reach out to them to do that. So Jane, I'll hand it back to you.
For sure. Well, firstly, I just want to say thank you so much, James. That was fantastic. That was a wonderful presentation and demonstration. And considering our timing has been perfect for today, I think we should probably wrap up. And I just want to remind everyone, James did mention this already. We are having our next webinar in this series on Thursday, July 9th from 2 to 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So same time slot. Next up will be through a finance lens. So why your finance team will thank you for migrating. James will be joining us again, and so will Stephanie Gunn, one of our senior finance consultants on the team. And I just want to echo, if any questions come to your mind after we wrap up, please make sure to send them through to the email you see on the screen there, connect@sparkrock.com. Your questions will be answered right away. And one more time, I also just want to say thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much, James, for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks so
Thanks.
much, everybody. Bye-bye.